This episode is brought to you by my book, Speak From Within. Review what's inside and purchase it at izoldat.com/speak-book. Hello, and welcome to the Creative Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Izolda Trachtenberg. Whether you're writing the first sentence of a story or solving the climate crisis, you need to think in new ways. On the show, I interview peak performers who are coming up with those creative solutions. Through creativity, action, inspiration, and innovation, they're changing the world. I also bring you ideas and techniques that you can use to unlock your potential to do the same. And now, let's get to the show. Hello, and welcome to the Creative Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Izolda Trachtenberg. I'm coming at you from a parking lot today. This is one of my more infrequent nowadays episodes where I'm out and about. I'm on travel today and realized a little late that I had forgotten to get you this episode. And today I want to talk about what happens when you have hecklers, when it comes to being vegan or any other kind of communication situation, right? So recently, I posted something that a friend of mine posted about veganism, about a lamb that was destined for slaughter. And somebody replied, bullshit, and just, blah, 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 blah. These are ours to eat. And so there was a moment where I kind of went, okay, what? And part of the problem was that there's a cognitive dissonance there for me when it comes to thinking that another being is okay for me to kill and eat. It's not okay for me to do that. And that's sort of where I approach things from. And in trying to communicate with this person, I realized that he, how do I put this, was being deliberately obtuse, right? I'm asking him in this conversation to step back and think a little bit bigger than, this is what I want on my plate for dinner. And the problem is, of course, that some people really want to hold on to those beliefs, because it's like I heard a quote, and unfortunately I don't have a source. And the quote was, you can't ever win an argument with a vegan because the argument isn't with the vegan, it's with your own conscience. And I wish I had a citation for you because I think it's brilliant. And whenever you're communicating, if you're communicating with someone who's holding on to beliefs because of a defensive reason, because their own conscience, or because they know deep down that they're not 100% in the right, but instead of sort of being able to get practical about it and look at it from that bird's eye view and go, am I being my best right now? Am I doing the best that I can right now? And maybe they are doing the best that they can, but their reasoning is either based in a flaw or a logical issue, or they're just defensive, right? And it's very difficult to have a substantive discussion with someone who's defensive. It becomes almost impossible when they double down on their defensive-ness. So we're left sort of wondering, how do you talk to someone like that? How do you actually have discourse? And as I thought about dealing with this person, now this wasn't live and in person, this was across social media, but as I thought about it, I went, okay, what are my options here? One of my options is definitely to keep engaging and to go, no, you're absolutely wrong. This lamb deserves to live. This lamb deserves to live a full and happy and healthy life. And someone had spray painted the number 2 in blue on this lamb's fur, right? So, and the guy was going, he's going to be a wool lamb. Well, no, they don't spray paint lamb's wool if they're going to be using the lamb's wool for wool. They do that for slaughter, but it doesn't even matter. I don't wear wool either, so none of that was any sort of an argument for me. That was one that I wanted to put up with or deal with. But the point for me was that I wasn't trying to convince him specifically of anything. He's the one who called bullshit on what I was saying. And he approached it from this very, as you can probably tell, defensive place. And so how do you come to terms with someone who's just being defensive and will just keep cussing at you. Now, for me, the second someone cusses at me, I kind of go, okay, they've checked out. They've ceded control of their faculties and their sort of practical mind, because now they've gone right to insults. So when you're in their discussion with someone who is coming from that defensive place, you have to decide whether or not you want to have what is essentially an irrational discussion with someone who's dug in and is stomping their metaphorical feet because they think they're right and no one is going to change their mind. So before you do anything else, if someone meets you with that kind of vitriolity and anger, you have to decide whether or not you want to keep engaging, right? Because if you do, then yeah, keep talking, keep working through, keep trying to see things from their point of view so that you can counter with calm, reasoned, logical argument and debate instead of, oh yeah, well, bullshit to you too. It doesn't work. It doesn't help. It doesn't do anything but get people ticked off at one another even more, and then discussion breaks down. So if you do decide that you're going to engage, then make the decision that you will not meet their vitriolity and their vehemence and their anger with equal vitriolity, vehemence, and anger. That's something that's really important to remember, that you have to sort of make that decision for yourself. I will not do this. I will breathe through and I will work to find a common ground so that we can keep this discussion going. And maybe we can come to at least an understanding. If not, I can convince you that in this case, killing a lamb so that you can have lamb for dinner is the right thing to do. Okay. So I can't convince him of this. This is what I should isn't the right thing to do. It's the wrong thing to do for me. So I couldn't convince him. And that was sort of my moment in the sun, if you will. I kind of had to go, okay, who am I going to be in this discussion? Because I could feel myself getting also angry. And in defense of this lamb, I was getting angry. I was also starting to lose my clear thinking faculties. And that's just how that is. So I had to make that decision. Do I want to keep engaging? And personally, I did not. And that is fine. You do not have to engage in every debate and in every discussion, particularly if the person is being deliberately defensive, deliberately obtuse, willfully ignorant. If they are, and you are safe to do so, walk away. Take a deep breath and say, I'm done with this discussion. I don't have to have it with you, and walk away. It is okay to do that. You have my permission. You don't have to. I used to be the person who would engage with everyone and debate for hours and hours on end. And all it did was raise my blood pressure. It seldom brought any sort of consensus or any sort of reconciliation. It just brought more angry feelings. And so you have to decide for yourself. Do you want to keep engaging? If you do, keep going. Try and stay calm. Try and breathe through it. Try and keep sort of seeing from the other person's point of view. And in fact, here's a really fun little technique for you. When you're having a discussion with someone, especially if it's someone you're close to, and you have one point of view and they have an opposing point of view, switch points of view and argue for the other side. Like, if you think the sky is blue today and they think the sky is light blue, I don't know. So you think it's blue, but you argue for the fact that the sky is light blue, and they think it's light blue, and they argue for the fact that it's blue. See how it feels to argue for the other side, and you will see things from their point of view, and you will be able to engage in discussion much better and with a more clear head, and perhaps even come to consensus. In my case, I was not able to come to any sort of an accord with this person, and I ended up having to finish the conversation because it wasn't going to get me anywhere. And you have to decide what your long-term goal is. My long-term goal is to help educate people about veganism and about the fact that there's no need to eat animals. We can do just fine without eating them. That's part of my long-term mission, but I am not the frontline person who's going to be throwing red paint on someone. That's not me. I do it from living by example, and I know this about myself. I have friends who are activists in the other way, and God bless them. That's awesome. It's not who I am, and I have to be okay with that. And over the years, I've become okay with it. So now I'm going even further. I'm sort of narrowing down, and that is, can I have a substantive discussion with this person? If I can, great. If I can't, I have to sometimes walk away, and you're allowed to too. Just remember that. All right. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the the Vegan Life Solutions of the Creative Solutions podcast. This is Izolda Trachtenberg reminding you, as always, to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Izolda Trachtenberg and is copyright 2023. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope. Until next time, keep living what you believe in.